to my first episode of Let's Go There. I am so excited. I'm nervous, but it's going to be a good night. I cannot wait for you to meet my good friend, Latricia Trice. We've been friends forever. Not just friends, we are best friends. She's my BFF. And so she's a phenomenal story of going through miscarriages and then to her forever family of adoption. And so I cannot wait for you to meet her. Her name is Latricia Trice. Come on in. Hey, girl. How are you? Hey, girl. How are
Can you hear me? Good.
Yes.
How are you?
Good. Well, I want people to get to know you. So I have a couple questions for you, this or that. And so first thing, do you like shopping in the stores or are you an online shopper?
So I used to be all about in the stores, but now I'm definitely online. Since this pandemic, it's all about online.
Do you get an Amazon box almost every week?
Yeah, and my husband is like, stop ordering for Amazon, but I'm obsessed. And when I get a gift card, it's really like the worst. So yeah, I'm an Amazon girl.
It's over. How about, are you high heels or flat shoes?
So I'm flat, but of course, if I got to get cute and go somewhere, it's high heels, but it's like the thick high heels, just because like my feet can only take so much.
I hear you. Like, I just love that flat shoes are back in and running shoes with dresses. I'm here for it because I'm all about being comfortable, not just being like looking like a crazy person, like trying to walk on my high heels. Like, those girls, they try to look cute, but it don't look cute, right?
Right.
So, and also, will you prefer watching YouTube or a podcast to listen to?
Oh, you know what? It's actually split. I used to be all about podcasts, but now I love YouTube. I love looking at content on YouTube. So it's a split. It's 50-50.
What are you watching on YouTube? Spill the beans.
Okay, so some of it is my guilty pleasure of like celebrity catch up, what's happening. Also, I'm really into history. So it's like different girls that do history, like what's happened back in the day. So I watch that. And then I watch a lot of how-to tutorials. I'm obsessed with those, like for beauty, makeup, hair.
Yeah, because you are definitely into beauty. So I know I want to get into asking you some questions because it's so much. Your story is just so phenomenal. I've been very blessed to be a part of your journey since you're about 24 years old, and now you're 38. Just last week, we are May babies. We have that in common. And so, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself today.
Yeah, so I am married. I've been married for 15 years. I have 3 kids. I am a career woman, so I work in corporate social responsibility for a global company. And then I'm also a pastor. I co-pastor Relevant Church with my husband, Robert.
Awesome. And how long would we say we've known each other for? About?
I think it's going on like 13 years.
13 years. Yeah, because I think I met you right before I had Gabriel. So it's been a minute. And so let's get my first question for you is like, what did you think coming out of college, what your life would look like? Like, give us a little glimpse what you thought it would be like.
So I graduated from Michigan State, so go green. And when I got out of college, I thought that I was going to do PR. So I thought I was going to do public relations. I got a job in Grand Rapids, so that's what brought me to West Michigan. But it was meant to be a pit stop. I was planning to go to a big city. So I always saw myself in like New York or Atlanta, LA. But I ended up getting a job working in marketing in Grand Rapids. And, I ended up meeting a guy, my husband. And you know what happens once you meet somebody, it's a wrap. So,
it's a wrap.
But my goal was to be in a big city.
Sorry, tell them how long you guys were dating before you got married.
So I met my husband, Robert, at church. We dated for a month before we got engaged, and we were married within 5 months. Great. And we've been together 15 years. We just hit 15 years.
Crazy. And it's a miracle you guys are still together because I don't know how many people could do that.
No, we definitely learned each other along the way. So it definitely was, who was this guy? Like, what the heck? Once we like became one, but then we learned each other over, along the years. But
so when you got married, did you guys have this plan what type of family that you wanted to have? Like, was there a plan? Like, did you guys decide like we want 3 kids? And I have to add, your husband has how many siblings?
So he has 12 brothers and sisters. So he comes from a big family, and I was the only child until I was 13, and my parents adopted my little brother and sister. So it was just completely different how we grew up. Completely different, but yeah. He loved kids, and I was like, kids are cute, but I don't know when I want to have them.
So that's kind of you didn't really know if you wanted kids or anything like that.
Yeah. I wanted kids. I just didn't know when. So I actually thought I was going to be married when I turned 30. So me getting married at 22 was like, that wasn't part of the plan. And then,
Real
so
life.
see, like this is real life. Like my
Right.
2-year-old comes down while I'm on here. But yeah, so I wasn't expecting to get married, but we got married at 30. I mean, I got married at 22, and then I thought maybe we'd have kids around 30. But I always wanted two, a boy and a girl. That's what I was hoping for.
So what ended up happening with your family planning?
So my husband and I, we ended up getting pregnant 3 years into our marriage. And the first pregnancy, we found out it was interesting. First of all, we weren't trying. So when I found out I was pregnant, and then when we went to a doctor, there was 3 gestational sacs. So I'm like, first of all, I wasn't trying to get pregnant. Second of all, you talking about triplets? Like, that's insane. But we ended up having a miscarriage. And, once we found out that we were pregnant, we were excited. And then, so, when I found out it was 3, we were hoping, well, maybe 1 would survive, but I ended up having an early miscarriage before I hit 12 weeks. And so that was our first experience.
Talk about the first time you miscarried. What was happening around that time? Like, I kind of remember that you were graduating with your master's at that time. Like, how did you handle that? Like, going through a miscarriage with a child that you weren't, children that you weren't planning. Like, how are you feeling?
So for me, it was, so once I found out that I was pregnant, I was super excited. We were excited about becoming parents. I'm sorry, my daughter is real life.
We're at home.
We're at home. So once I found out though that I was pregnant, I was excited. And then around that time, I was finishing on my master's degree. So I took a year off of school, and then I went back to get my master's in communications from Grand Valley. And then I found out I was pregnant. So in the midst of getting ready to graduate from my master's program, I also found out I was pregnant, then had a miscarriage. So it was a lot going on during that time. And as much as I wanted to be excited about getting my master's degree, it literally was just a blur for me, because I also had to deal with the fact that I'm about to walk across the stage, and then a couple days later, I got to go get a DNC.
Wow.
So it was, that was a rough period.
What would you say, how was your husband's response at this time?
I would say he was really supportive. I think, he was really excited about the possibility of us becoming parents. And then, obviously when we had the loss, that was hard, that we had to deal with. And then I think too, like, backing up a little bit, even with the miscarriage, it was so dramatic. Like, it wasn't just like a little like, I'm, a little small, not discounting anybody miscarriage, but it was massive. Like, it was very traumatic. And then having to go to the hospital, and then finding out I had to get a DNC. That was all very traumatic. So we had to deal with all of that. But he was trying to be as supportive as he could. I think for me, I tend to be a person that's just a keep it moving person. So I was trying to process my feelings and keep going. But then I did have like a breakdown moment where it was like, none of this stuff matters. It doesn't matter that I'm getting my master's degree. It doesn't matter that, all my hard work is paying off up to this point, because I can't get my husband a child. So that was like some of those feelings that I had to deal with. But he was really supportive and was like, you know what, it happens, and, we'll be able to try again.
So moving forward to when you actually did get pregnant again after the miscarriage, which about a couple of years, maybe 3 years after, what was your response when you were pregnant? Were you scared? Were you like, okay, I'm excited, or nervous? What was like your...
Yeah, so 3 years after the first miscarriage, I got pregnant again with my son, Caleb. And I was really excited because I was like, oh my God, like, okay, I'm pregnant again. Again, we weren't trying. So every time we're not trying is when we've been able to get pregnant. And but I was nervous. I was, and it was milestone. So when I hit the 12 weeks, it was, yes, I made the 12 weeks. When so it was going great. Like, I wasn't sick. My pregnancy was so awesome. I wasn't sick. I didn't gain that much weight. I ate the healthiest I ever ate in my life. Like, it was just such a great experience. But then with Caleb, I'll never forget this time. So I used to be obsessed with watching Desperate Housewives, and it was a series finale, and I remember that like he wasn't really moving, and I was like, okay, something's kind of wrong, but I don't know. I thought it was just me, right? So my husband was like, if he's not moving, we need to call a doctor. So I called the doctor. They was like, come in. They ran tests, and then they found out that my fluids were really low. So they were like, we're probably going to have to do, induce you. But then it got to the point where it's like, we know we have to do emergency C-section. So for me, though, it wasn't registering in my mind because at this point in time, I was leading marketing and communications for a local nonprofit. I was trying to prepare my team for my leave. And this was 6 weeks prior to me. All this was happening 6 weeks prior to me about to have Caleb. So I'm like, wait a minute, this is not a part of the plan. I'm a planner. So I'm like, this is not a part of the plan. He can't be coming yet. I'm not ready. Like, what the heck? Like, I was planning on C-section. It was insane.
And I remember it was Mother's Day weekend. Like,
it was Mother's Day weekend. So it was Mother's Day weekend, the series finale of Desperate Housewives. It was like a lot. There was a lot going on. So in my end, it was going against my plan. Like, this wasn't the plan. So they were like,
I also remember that it was Mother's Day weekend and you didn't want to leave the house. Like, you wanted to watch TV, and Robert was like, I think you should go to the doctor. Like, I think something's wrong. You're like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm good. And he's like, no, I think we should go to the hospital. And I remember that night you actually went to the hospital and they had to do an emergency section. I remember getting the call at 1:00 in the morning from Robert and saying, hey, get to the hospital now. So I remember getting into the car, got to the hospital. Caleb was literally born 10 minutes after I got there. I see they roll you out of the OR room. I'm like, hey girl, congrats, this baby. You're like, okay, let me take a picture. Like, so you're like, hand me my lip gloss, hand me my earrings. I legit like give you your earrings, lip gloss. I prepared my phone, and you prepared to pose for this picture to post on Facebook that I just had a baby. And of course, Robert's not having it right now. And then after that, you're like, okay, so I'm going to email work now. I got to do some work. You literally had a baby 10 minutes, and you're like getting ready to post your selfie picture. And then you're like, let me email work. What was going through your mind at that moment?
Yeah, so I didn't realize in that moment I was having some post-traumatic stress disorder that was taking place. I didn't realize it. But only thing I could think about in that moment was like, this didn't go according to plan. Not only did Caleb come 6 weeks early, he was only 3 pounds, 1 ounce. Oh, so my baby had to go to NICU. And so I'm like, he has to go to NICU. He's small. Like, I wasn't expecting this. And so the only thing I could think was like, okay, I need to finish this work. I got to prepare my team. And I remember like HR, my boss at the time was like, stop texting, like, stop emailing, like, we got it, it's fine. But for me, it was like, I actually made my husband leave the hospital, go home to get my work computer. And that, like, people were just like, man, like, is she okay? Like, I was just, and then when he was in NICU, I struggled with going to see Caleb. So Robert was there like early in the morning. He was like, he's an amazing dad, and he literally went to super dad. He was at NICU every morning. And for some reason, for me, it was like, I was going at night. I was struggling to pump and all that stuff. And it was just hard for me. Like, those first couple of weeks, and he was in NICU for 3 weeks. And I think it was just, I didn't know it at the time that I was going through some stress, with just everything not happening according to plan and not really knowing how to deal with my feelings. But once Caleb got home, then I got back on track. But it was an interesting period of time. And in that moment, I did realize, though, that I was a workaholic. That's how I discovered that.
Yeah, I think some people, did you feel like people were judging you to think that, oh man, like, you want to do work, but you weren't, did you feel you had that natural instinct to be a mom, or were you disconnected, or you felt like, yeah, but I just wanted to make sure I finish my obligations at work?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a way for me to cope with what was happening. So for me, it was like, I wanted to do my work. It was what I was comfortable with. And during that time too, I was building my career. So I was on the fast track of building my career, and, becoming like a director at 25 and leading a team and all that. Like, there's a lot of expectations that come with that. So for me, it was, I want to build my career, but now I'm a mom. It didn't go according to plan. Like, how do I my priorities was kind of like off in that time. And my husband was super dad. So I had a guy who was like an amazing dad, and he just made it easy for me. Like I was really blessed because he made it easy. Like it really didn't feel like that much change as a parent because my husband did everything. He did everything.
And I have to say, like, you know, Latricia and I both are May babies. So since we've known each other, we celebrate our birthday every month. And so she had a baby in May, and it was Mother's Day. And literally 2 weeks after she had the baby, you're at the hospital, we went to get pedicures. Like I remember for our birthdays, and people thought like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, why are you guys going? Because we just felt like, well, he's at the hospital. He's well taken care of by nurses. But I have to tell this one story. Latricia literally had a baby 3 weeks. That same day, actually, we got pedicures. I had young children. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time when she had Caleb, and she dropped me off the house, and I put the kids, Gabriel and Noah, in the house, but then I put my keys down. I locked the kids in the house with the lights off because I was going back. I didn't want them to run in the front yard. And I was losing my mind. Like, oh my gosh, I've locked the kids in the house. I go in the backyard. She comes to the backyard with me. And I'm like, oh my God. Like Gabriel's screaming in the kitchen, like, Mom, what to do? I can't reach the door. 3-year-old. And then I'm like freaking out. She literally pushes me out of the way. She climbs on my AC unit and she climbs through my kitchen window. I'm there pushing her through my window just to open so my kids can open the door. I was like, this woman is superwoman. She literally had a baby 3 weeks ago, and she's saving my life with my own kids. Like,
and it wasn't just I had a C-section, so I was fully recovered.
But that's just how you are. Like, you just kick back like that quickly to be like life was normal almost, and you just had a baby. And I think that was the starting of like a little bit of a journey of even when you were working a lot, even when Caleb was little, you were kind of not around that much because you worked a lot.
Mm-hmm. Would you say I was like really, I would say, yeah, I think, you know, with Caleb, like I said, because I had a lot of support with my husband, I was just really focused on my career. Like I was completely focused on my career, and being a mom, being a wife was second to me because I was that driven, you know, during that time. And I didn't realize it until I got a little older. And, you know, if you think about it, I got married young. So I'm in the prime of my 20s, being a mom, being a new wife, and still trying to grow my career because I had aspirations and goals of what I wanted for my career. So, yeah, it was an interesting time. Looking back, you'll be like, yeah, girl, you were like, your mom skills one of the best.
But I think you were doing, I don't want to mom shame you because I think you were doing the best that you could. And I think you also, one thing I've known about you, always want to provide for your family. That's like your number one. And you will work all night long to make sure you get your job done. And I think that you have you feel a responsibility when you handle a team, you handle your families, and you make sure you get the job done. And I think that's what you were doing in that moment. But I think you were also a new mom, and that wasn't new. And you got to think about it. Not only that, you were like making big strides at your job. Like you were doing things that people were not doing. And there was that pressure of, can I still be a mom while working? And will they think that I can't do it? Right.
And that's real. And I think, you know, when you're a working mom and you're trying to build a career and you have aspirations of where you want to be, because for me, you're right. Like I felt like me working hard is helping to provide for my family to have the best life, right? Because my dreams didn't go away just because I'm a mom or just because I became a wife when it came to my career. I'm like, I didn't go to school to get my undergrad and graduate to not use it. Like that was my feelings on that, right? But I think, you know, with that, you know, I remember one time I asked a lady that was older than me, I said, how do you balance it all? Like, I don't know, like, how do you balance this? And I will never forget, she told me, she said, it will never be 100 and 100. It's going to be 50-50. And when you're in the moment of being a mom, be completely present. When you're in the moment of being an employee, be present. But you have to get over that whole idea that you're going to be able to balance it all because you can't. Like, it's hard to find that balance. And so I had to learn that. But I had to learn how to be present when I'm in the moment of what I'm doing at home and know when to cut it off.
So let's go. So now you've had Caleb, and then like you miscarried. Then you have Caleb like 6 years later. Then you miscarry again when you think you're having another child. And what was crazy about I think this miscarriage was it was almost the same timing as to have Caleb, like the same time zone, like in October around time. So what was your feelings at your second miscarriage?
So that would have been actually, yeah. So my second miscarriage. I'm like, how many miscarriages did I have? Yeah, I forgot I had 3. so,
Yeah.
so the second one, I was really excited because I thought, okay, now this is my girl. Because again, going back, I'm a planner, so my perfect picture of what life was going to be like. I was going to have a boy. I was going to have a girl. It was going to be great. And so when I had the second miscarriage, it was unexpected. It was like I wasn't expecting that to happen, but I had this whole thing in my mind that, well, my last kid is going to be at 35. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't 35. I think I was probably like 32. So I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Like, I still got time. So I felt like I kind of bounced back from it a little bit, quicker just because I felt like I had time. But it wasn't until I had my third miscarriage when I was at 35 that the reality set in that you have some fertility challenges. There's an issue. It's not easy for you to get pregnant. And I had to face that reality because before then I felt like I had time based off my age. And I didn't realize that was a real reality for me, that I struggle with having kids.
Like, let's talk about being 35 and trying to have kids. Like, did that kind of
Yeah.
affect your psyche a little bit?
Yeah, it did, because I thought that, in my perfect world, I would have already had my second kid.
Mm-hmm.
But being 35, it was like, okay, I don't know, it's just me. But I didn't want to have kids over 35. Like, I didn't want to be pregnant over 35. And at this point, I'm 10 years, oh no, how old am I? Yeah, I'm almost like 12 years into my career. So my career is continuing to grow. I'm at a new job now, doing new work. I'm traveling, traveling and just have an exciting job. And so for me, it was, okay, if we're going to have another baby, we need to have it. How is this going to work? And so when I did get pregnant again unexpectedly at 35, I thought, oh, okay, well, this is God's plan. This is the will that he has for my life. When I had a miscarriage, I said, okay, God, what's going on? Because this ain't a part of the plan. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to deal with that.
So now you had a miscarriage. You have a miscarriage, I think, around October time. Like, me, I remember everything.
You remember everything. You remember more details than me. Like, I'm like, what detail was that?
I can't let go of things. I just remember. But I remember you literally, like, you got this new promotion and you found you're pregnant a week before this new job. And you're like, kind of like, oh my gosh, like, you're kind of torn because, like, this was a really good job. Like, you're going to be at Fashion Week, a lot of opportunities and trying to battle that. But then by the end of the year, you were kind of like, maybe I should go to the doctor to figure out, is there something wrong with my body? And then you got presented with an opportunity with taking in your cousins. And so tell about how did that work, about fostering to adoption. What was that story? Like, give us inside scoop on that.
So what was interesting is, so when I came to reality that there may be some fertility challenges, we went to a fertility clinic to get checked out. So we went there, they ran tests, and there wasn't anything wrong with me. Like, it wasn't anything that they could find that was causing the miscarriages. They were like, we don't necessarily know why you're having early miscarriages, but there's things that we can do to help you if you want to get pregnant again. And so we were in that time of contemplating, should we, or how should we proceed? And then I learned through my mom that my little cousin, who was 2 at the time, was in foster care, and the mom was pregnant with a baby that was probably going to go in foster care also. Mm-hmm. So I talked to my husband, and in the past we had talked about adopting and fostering, but then I was kind of on the fence of doing that. And we talked about it, and I was like, "What do you think about taking my little cousin in?" And my husband was like, "Absolutely, like, yeah, like, for sure, right?" And then, okay, this is kind of funny. Like, we talked about it. Then we watched the movie Instant Family. And then after we watched Instant Family, we're like, oh, yeah, we got to take the whole world. Like, we're going to take all the kids in. So we're like, this is what we're going to do. But we ended up going through the process of finding out where my little cousin was, connected with my husband had reached out to the foster care worker, but she hadn't gotten back. So I was like praying about it. So during this time, I'm like, okay, God, we're moving kind of fast. And that's something about me and my husband. We're one of those people that we go with our gut and we just move. If we feel led to do something, we just like jump in. But then I started having a little bit of doubt, like, okay, are we moving too fast? Like, are we doing too much? And I prayed about it. And I said, God, so I remember it was like on a Thursday, and I prayed about it. And I said, God, if it's your will that we take in my little cousin and the soon to come baby, then I need you to show us a sign. That was on a Thursday. On Monday, the foster care worker finally called back after 2 weeks and was like, hey, I know you've been trying to reach out to us. The 2-year-old who was Araya, she's going to need placement because the people who had her in foster, they were giving back the kids that they had. And we were like, okay, they say, you're so interested. We're like, yeah. So the foster care people came on a Wednesday, looked at our house, and we were like, okay. They're like, you guys seem great. You know, you're good. And we were like, well, when will we get her? It was like Thursday. We're like, wait, the next day? And they're like, yeah. So we literally got my little cousin. I had never met her, even though she was my cousin. That was the first time I ever met her. We went to Jackson, Michigan, where I was raised. Picked her up. She had a little box of just her little blankets and a coat, and we took her home. And she's been with us forever. And then that was in December. A month later, her sister was born, Olivia, and we got Olivia 3 days old out the hospital. So we literally went from 1 to 3 kids in a matter of a month and a half.
Wow. And I remember this was like, you literally went to a fertility clinic. Mm-hmm. The week later, you're like, are we going to be do foster care? Then a month later, like, we have a newborn. And let's just talk about the transition. Having Caleb was 7 around the time. And then you have a 2-year-old. And then you have a 3-day-old baby in the house, and you're running your job, your full-time job at the time as well. And we didn't put it in there, but Latricia is also a pastor, an executive pastor, just like me, running a church, right? Along with all this going on, like that was a major transition.
Yeah, it was a lot. I think for us, it was, so first of all, we had to just like say, okay, how are we going to do this? So me and my husband had to come up with our plan. Like, what's the plan? I will say it takes a village. The people at my job was completely amazing. Like in my church, we literally didn't buy anything. Like we got a crib, we got clothes, they threw baby showers, gift cards. Like we had everything we needed to welcome these kids in. And then my job was like, Latricia, you can be flexible in how you need to do this. They were like, you can take time off. I'm like, no, I'm not taking time off because I was going to Paris for work in a couple of months. And I was like, I'm going to Paris. Like, that's not, like, that ain't happening. I don't figure it out. Don't worry about it. But it gave me flexibility to be able to be home. And I think, even leading up to that point, just the caseworkers, we were a part of Samaritas, helped us with our adoption. Like, it was so many people that God surrounded us with that just really helped us make this transition smooth for our family. And so it just ended up working out. And thankfully, like the kids were great. Like Olivia was a great baby. We didn't have any issues. And, but I will say this, one thing that was an added on piece of all this, the kids were still in foster, meaning that their parents' rights hadn't been terminated. Mm-hmm. So my husband had to drive to Jackson 2 days a week, which is an hour and a half from where we lived, so that they could do an hour visit with their bio parents. So he was doing this, as soon as Olivia was born, like a week, like he was doing it before Olivia came, that was the baby. And then he had to do it a week after she came. So it was a lot happening. But then eventually, like the parents lost their rights, and then we didn't have to do that anymore. And then we went through the adoption process. And then so the adoption, COVID hit. So literally that was insane. So it took less than a year for us to adopt the girls once the parents' rights were terminated. So we had them a total of 18 months before the adoption completed. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to do our ceremony. So like during this whole process, we would go to the courts when there were different hearings, and we would drive to Jackson and just be there. And I wanted my celebration. I'm like, we did all this. Like I want my, I wanted my forever party, like with the judge and all that. And COVID hit. So we're all on lockdown, but we still were able to move forward with the adoption. So in April of last year, we did the adoption, and I asked the question, can we do a Zoom celebration? Because the people who have been on this journey, I wanted them to experience the closing of that chapter. And so the judge said yes. They hadn't done it before, but they did it. Of course, I'm going to ask. And he said yes. And so we were able to do our forever celebration with the judge. And it was just so amazing because I will have to give it up to my son, Caleb. He is a phenomenal big brother. Mm-hmm. And to go from being the only child to welcoming sisters into his home and just being such an amazing brother, it was incredible. And at the end of the adoption, it was the sweetest thing that, of course, we cried. Rhea says, my name is Trice now. Aww. And then Caleb, after it was all done, he looked sad. We're like, Caleb, what's wrong? He just burst out crying and was like, I'm so happy. Aww. And so it was literally like our family just sealed, and now
I definitely was crying because I was on the Zoom call, because it was just to see the journey. It's been phenomenal to see all of you act. And so actually we have a picture that we want to show of their forever family right now that we're going to show on the screen. I think we're gonna put up a picture. Oh, they're so cute! Look at the girls. The little one is Olivia, and the older one that's at the bottom is Rhea. And there's Caleb, my godson. So cute. just amazing family. You guys are just beautiful. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to step back a little bit and talk about how was navigating biological parents while navigating you being the adopted parents, the forever parents as well. How did you guys navigate through that? Was that easy? Was it hard? Even though, and you got to remember, this is your family. So this is your uncle, your cousins. How did you navigate through that?
Yeah, so it was we had an experience. I think anytime you're adopting family, it can be challenges because there's feelings there, there's emotions there, right? And for my uncle, he was losing his kids. And not only was he losing his kids, his daughter saw us as mom and dad, for the bio mom, they saw us as mom and dad. So we had to navigate that. For us, it was always in our heart. The reason why we did the adoption is because God told us to. And and we had already wanted it. We were open to it being an open adoption because we wanted our girls to know they're loved by many people. And we're their mom and dad, but they also have another mom and dad who love them as well. And they're just not in a position to take care of them. So we kept that this entire time. But there was some times when we had to just connect in communication, and we had to do some cutoffs where we couldn't talk. But I think that what's been amazing is God restores. And forgiveness is such a powerful thing. And there were some things that happened that wasn't the greatest in that relationship, but we were able to forgive and move on. And most recently, we took the girls to my hometown, and they got to see their dad for the first time in almost 2 years.
Wow.
And it was just, we just believe in the power of love and forgiveness, and it was important for us that they got to see their dad, and and they apologized for some ways that they had treated us throughout that time, and so all is forgiven. And their mom, she unfortunately is in jail. So she's in jail, but for me, it was important that I still send her pictures. And so I reached out to her while she's been incarcerated and send her pictures on a regular and let her know how the girls is doing. And also I have an opportunity to share Jesus with her. And that's what I want to be. I'm like, our job is to be the light. And I want the girls to know when they get older that there are a lot of people that cared about you. There's a lot of people that love you. And I don't want them to have to deal with how did we get here or what happened. Yeah. I want them to know that they're loved. And ultimately it's family. So we navigated.
That's powerful. I don't know if I would have the strength to do that. And I'll be very honest. I, at this point, I'm not open to adoption. My husband's more open to it. My heart's just not there yet. And what would you say to someone that is who's not considering or considering adoption? What would be some encouragement around adoption? Because in my head, I'm thinking, can I love them the same? Will it disrupt my own kids? I had 3 kids right now. I'm thinking, what's the psychological things I might have to deal with later? Those are all the things I'm scared about about adoption.
Yeah, those are real feelings. I think, the Bible tells us that we're supposed to love the orphans and, the people who are in need. And so we felt it as a call for us that, this is what God called us to do. And, I feel like even as I look back over the miscarriages and the losses, it was what needed to happen in my life so that we would be willing to open our heart and our home to our little girls. So it was all a part of God's bigger plan, what we experienced in this childhood, parenthood journey. I will say, though, for people who are considering adoption, there are so many kids that are looking for love. There are so many kids that need a home. There's so many kids that need to know that they matter and that people care about them. And if you have it in your heart to be able to open up your home, I encourage you to do so. We wondered if we could love the girls the same way that we love our son, and we absolutely do. And my husband loves Caleb. He's a daddy's boy. They are tight. They mom who. They are so tight. But my husband loves our girls just as much as he loved Caleb. And it's something that just happens in your heart when you adopt kids and you take them in. These kids are innocent. They didn't ask to be here. And I love our girls. I'm we love them to the point that when we die and we leave our estate, it's split in 3 ways. There's no favoritism. We're it's you guys are all one. So, I think if someone is struggling to have kids, consider adoption, consider foster. There's a lot of kids that need it, and you can make a difference.
And I want to say that I personally have seen the evolution of you from being 25, getting pregnant, losing, having a child in your late 20s, that you were very career focused, workaholic. Like you were the person that you kept like knocking off milestone after milestone. I'm like, okay, what else can this girl do? Like, you're just that bad at what you do. You're amazing. And then the last few years, I've really seen God just soften your heart and also just change your focus. And you really, in this season, I've seen you raise these girls. They are your priorities. Like, you really focus on them. Work is there, but you don't make work is not your first priority at all. And ministry, like, you are the queen of ministry. Like, honestly, like, I love that we can call each other on that kind of stuff, that we can be, we years ago when we made decision that we were going to be friends, we knew that it was very sacred, a sacred relationship, because not everyone understands ministry. Not everyone understands running a church plant with small children and up early, late at nights. The revolving door, people leaving your church, coming in the church, you know how it is.
Yeah.
And I've just seen you really have some amazing grace in this season, that your heart has just gotten bigger. And I'm just so proud of you for who you've becoming. And there's just so much more that I know that God has in store for you. And so kudos to you for just becoming who you are today through these experiences.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think like as you get older, your priorities do change. And for me, it was I still have a good career. I want to continue to grow my career, but I want to be present. And it's very important to me when it comes to my family that I don't miss the moments and that they know that I cared and that I was there. And so I had a shift that's taken. Once the girls came, it was my do-over a little bit too, for me to be able to really be present and to also get closer to my son and make sure that he knew that I was there. And so I think it's been awesome just to see how my kids respond to me. And I even have a favorite. Like, I'm somebody's favorite. I love all three of my kids the same, but it's so funny because normally my husband is a kid guy. Like, people love him. But like my littlest Olivia is like, nope, mommy's my favorite. And so I'm like, but that's something that I want to be intentional about. And, I don't think like I said, I don't think you could ever fully balance, but you can be present. And I just choose to be present over perfect. And that's where I'm at.
That's so good. So how do you right now juggle your career, your children, your church? Like, what are you putting in place to manage all those things? Because those are let me say, like, you're doing some like major things at your job. People don't even understand. Like, you're like changing the face of this multi-million-dollar organization, like legit changing it. You're changing what they used to do in the past, and you're creating new opportunities there. Not only that, being a mom of 3, and we're going to touch that a little bit, biracial children. With the height of what's going on as well. And not only that, a church plant that is growing and like flourishing in COVID. Like, how are you managing all those hats?
You know what? I don't like, it's funny because it's like, I just do it. I think I get excited, right? I get excited about opportunities, and I'm definitely like one of those people that I keep it moving. Like, I always look for the opportunity. I always look for the opportunity to be innovative, to think outside the box, to be creative. And, I try to not be so black and white in how I move and operate, but really be able to see that gray. And so I think like with COVID, it really gave me an opportunity too, to be able to just reflect, right? And to be able to think about what I want. Like, I'm definitely one of those people, like, where do I see myself in the next 5 years? Like, so I just hit 38. So now, for example, I'm on a journey to 40. So I'm like, what am I going to accomplish over the next 2 years on my road to 40? Like, I'm just that person. And, but a lot of it is just do it, right? I feel like you can spend so much time thinking about how you're going to do it that you can overanalyze things, that it's like, just try. And if it doesn't work out, learn from it and keep going. And I am really fortunate to work for an awesome organization that allows you to be creative. They really value like that work-life balance as best you can, make it. And I feel like having a job where you can really grow and do what you're good at. And then also, having a church plant, but having really strong volunteers that, you can delegate. I used to be a doer, like I can do, but I've learned how to delegate and how to grow leaders and how to allow people to do things. Like, it may not be exactly how I do it, but that's okay. Like, let people lead, let people grow. And so I think as I've shifted into like that mindset, it's allowed me to be able to manage all these things. And, you know, for us, like me and my husband, we're very intentional about getting away. Like this year, we went to Mexico. We're like, you know what? We'll be all right with COVID. We're going to take our, we'll be all right. It was before the vaccination came out. We're like, we trust God. We going to Mexico. So we're like very intentional about making time for us. We're very intentional about doing family vacations. Like this summer, we're going to Orlando for 8 days with 3 kids in the thick of heat in Florida, like we're crazy. But that's the kind of stuff we like to do to create memories. So we just go for it. And I think too, having strong partnership, I think I will say, without a doubt, I would not be able to do what I do without a strong man that's next to me and allow me to be me. My husband has never tried to change me. He has only been like my loudest cheerleader. And because of that, I've been able to do what I do. I never felt restricted by anything because he's so supportive. And that's really helped me out a lot. So
that's really good because, you know, Robert's amazing. He's an amazing cook. Like when I was pregnant, Robert was cooking for me and my household. Like he was the first person to watch Gabriel for us when we had to do like appointments. Like Robert literally is an amazing pastor, amazing father, and just an amazing friend. Like we've been really blessed to have really good friends to walk through like just the different seasons of life with. And so as today is May 25th, just a year ago, we lost George Floyd. And, you know, just the hype of this racial thing that we've been through, how has been navigating adopting biracial girls? Like, what did you feel like you had to, like, even though your girls are young, but did you feel like you had a responsibility to change or teach them new things? Or later on in their life, you want to make sure that you do things for them to make sure they know who they are, have confidence, and just be aware of diversity or the climate of racial things that they might have to deal with? Or have you even dealt with some race issues having biracial children?
Yeah, so I am definitely a person that's pretty woke, and I'm pretty outspoken when it comes to just racial injustice. And I mean, especially I care about equity. I care about you know, just speaking up and having a voice. And so for my kids, for my son Caleb, like we had those conversations, especially last year with the George Floyd and him seeing the news. We were glued to CNN and MSNBC and listening to podcasts and all that. So he heard what was going on. So we had to have that talk. And I'm very aware that as he gets older, we're going to have more serious talks of this is what it's like to be a young Black boy in America. Like those are real talks that me and my husband are already planning. And with my girls, so I want them to fully embrace all of themselves. Like I want them to love their white side, love their Black side, know that they were fearfully and wonderfully made, and never have to feel like they have to be something. Like they have to be a both, because I want them to just be them. And I will educate them. You know what I mean? I feel like as people of color, you don't have the option not to educate your kids. But I want to do it like where I'm at right now with my girls is to love themselves. I want you to love your curly hair. I want you to love your fair skin. I want you to know you're so cute. I want you to love your features. And that's where I'm at right now. And as they get older, I'll start to teach them more about what they may run into as they get older. But we're very open in our house when it comes to those kind of things. And we think it's important.
It's so good. Like, I think as women, like, and young girls, I don't think that we hear enough about affirmations. And I love what's happening I feel like there's this rise up of women coming together, and we're not in competition anymore, but we're cheering and being champions. And I can't say that in the last 10 years, it was always like that. But I feel the last couple of years, I've really seen women step up for each other. And I love what's kind of happening in this season. Have you been seeing the same thing as well?
I have. I've been seeing a lot of, I think, for me, I think especially over this past year, you just seen women rise up. Like, I think about people like, I know I was really inspired by Stacey Abrams. Like, she's just a world changer. Like, this lady is amazing, but just getting inspired by these people like the Michelle Obama. It's just the people that are speaking up and not afraid to be their full selves and not afraid to speak up. And I think that women are supporting women. So I work in women empowerment and corporate social responsibility. And I think even working in that space, like it just changes your viewpoint. It's like we're better together. And when women are supporting each other, we could go so much further and do so much more. And, I feel like when we support each other to have a seat at the table, to use our voices, we're better for it. And so I think women I think we've seen that over the past year or so, and we need to continue to champion that. There's no competition. It's enough for all of us to eat. It's enough for all of us to be who we want to be. Let's lift each other up. I think it's the whole idea of, I believe in, I heard this from somebody, they said this at an event I was at years ago, and I never forget. The gift of lift. How can we give the gift of lift as women to lift each other up and to elevate each other?
Preach it, girl. You've been literally saying that. I would 15 years. Like I would say, okay, I don't know if I've known you 15 years, but it felt like 15 years, but at least 10 years.
Yeah.
You've been saying that, like, and I've seen you walk that out. Like, you're the type of person when someone has an idea, it's over. Like, ooh, you can do this, you can do that. I've never seen you hold back to help other people. And that's one thing. Financially, you've always opened your wallet. You've opened your house, like time after time. You've been a B&B for many people over the years. You open your house to animals. Like you have literally, you're so generous. Like I've never met a generous person. I truly believe too that I've never seen a broke, poor, generous person. Like you and your husband, the favor on your life when it comes to doors opening, I've never seen it. Like seriously, like never seen it between children, through ministry, through your jobs, like being generous and supporting other people. And you always are encouraging to people. And I think we need more of that. And I think our girls need that. Our sons need that. I think the workplace, I feel like that's another place that we need to be a lighthouse because we are Christians. And you know what? We don't need to be boring Christians. We can be, and people don't know, prior to this job, last year, you were a brand manager. So you were doing all makeup, but you were still changing the face of makeup. You know, back in your job, it was fairly new for diversity, different faces. And that's something that you went to Bangkok, Hawaii, you did New York fashion show and all this stuff that really you rippled the effect because you were willing to kind of push the envelope a little bit.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think we just got to step out of fear, out of fear, but there's no reason to live in fear. And honestly, I think so from like, since I was introduced to God, right? And I think especially like once I was in college, I'm like, God, I really want to be everything that you called for me to be. And I want to live a life poured out. When I die, I want to die. I want to die empty because I live my life poured out for you in whatever way that looks like. And I think so many times in a church context, we think about church, but no, like the life that you lead, the way that you demonstrate the gospel is through the life that you lead and how you live in different spaces that you're in, whether it's your job, whether it's in your home, whether it's in ministry, community. And so for me, it's really being intentional. Like, I want to be everything that God called for me to be and demonstrate the gospel through the way that I live my life. And hopefully when people interact with me, they see his light. They may not even know what it is, but I want people to be like, something's different. And then I have an opportunity to be like, that difference is Jesus. And you know, I think there's just so many opportunities. And I just think that we shouldn't be fearful of just living on purpose. Like live on purpose, truly, and be okay with that. So,
you said so much there, living a life poured out. How many of us are so filled of ourselves or of the world, of social media, the culture, that we're not even pouring out what God has, the gift that God's put in us? And I feel like even today, this is me stepping out. I can play it safe and being easy and just staying home and watching everyone else do their own show or their own like quotes. Because it took me even like 10 months to put a quote up there with my name on it because I was just like, the ideas of the voices. And we talk about this. Sometimes we get caught up in the voices. We get caught up on what people are saying on social media, the comparison crowd. Let's talk about that for a little bit. And it can be very detrimental to our mental health, detrimental to the gifts and the dreams that God's put in our heart. And we end up living a life full of ourselves and not poured out. And I agree with you. I want to live a life poured out. I want to die empty. And I so many times look at my husband and feel like, man, I want to live like him because like every day he comes back home empty. Like, bruh, how do you do that? That's what I'm always thinking.
And I think for you, it's such a big deal that you're doing this. Like, if you guys don't know Chantal, she always got a quote. Like, this is my girl that I go to and be like, okay, I got to speak this weekend. give me some good sassy thing that you like. What should I say? How should I word this? This girl is a wordsmith, and I'm so proud of you for doing your quotes and really letting people see what you pour out to people on a one-on-one basis. Like, you give so much and you have so much insightful things to help people. And now that you can do it here on this platform, so I'm excited for you. And I think that's a part of supporting each other. Being able to champion your friends and encourage them to step out, right? And like you said, avoiding that comparison trap. It's just, and the thing about social media, we always talk about this, but you only get to see a picture.
Right.
You only get to see a snapshot of what's going on. You think my kids is cute. You don't know how long it took to get that cute little picture. People don't know. People don't know what people go through to get to where they are or what they're doing. And so I think social media can be a great thing, but it also can get you messed up into thinking that you have to be something outside of what God called you to be. And that's not true.
That's so true. That's something we talk about all the time, because especially when you know people and you know the real story, and you're like, bruh, like you on social media. We know the truth, and I think sometimes it's hard not to lose respect for those type of people, even though maybe that's not their intent. But you're like, why are we doing this? Why are we trying to, get the fake celebrity status type of thing on social media when it's just not really like that. Like,
it's not real life. It's not real life. And it's like you don't have to tell like your whole whatever, but be authentic, right? Like, be authentic. And that's the thing. Like, I will say this. The way we think and the way we operate is I'm gonna keep it 100 with you.
100.
You don't have to worry about what I'm thinking, because I'm gonna tell you. There's no elephants in the room, because I'm gonna be open. Like, I'm gonna be real, because that's just how I operate. And there's not gonna be no awkwardness, because once I tell you how I feel, we're gonna keep it moving.
Let me tell you, legit, like, she don't hold on to nothing. Like, when she has it done, like, she keeps it moving the next day. She's like, oh, you still thinking about that? Like, I went to sleep. Like, I had a milkshake. I'm not thinking about you no more. Like, legit, I'm not that. I hold on to things a little bit longer, but you legit forgive and you move forward. You're like, are you still talking about that? That was last week. Like, you legit let go. That's a great quality to have that I appreciate about you. And so I just want to say thank you for being my first guest. I couldn't think about anybody else to have on my show. Like, you're just real and raw, and I hope people will follow you on your social media at Latricia Trice. Also, they have on Instagram, you have the is it called Trice Party of Five?
Yeah, the name that you helped me with. I'm telling y'all.
Listen, I'm Latricia's ghostwriter, okay? Legit, for everything. If you see her stuff, it's really me. But you know what? It's kingdom. It's kingdom. We share everything.
You got people to help you. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And another thing, like, I had this whole idea of like, I'm gonna do this whole. I had this whole idea. I'm gonna do this Trice Party of Five journal blog. I'm bored after like a week. I'm like, I can't keep up with this life. But you did help me come up with that great name, and so I do post sometimes. So if you want to see my cute little kids and their antics, go on Trice Party of Five. Follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to post more. That's my goal for this year.
So thank you for coming on the show. And if you haven't already, press like on YouTube. Yep. Subscribe if you haven't. Send it to your friends, because each week we're gonna have some real conversations. So next week, meet me here back Tuesday Night Live. Let's go there on Tuesday at 8 p.m. And so, Latricia, thank you again. Love you lots, and can't wait to connect soon. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.